All right. Hello, friends, and welcome back to some more Our Life Beginnings and Always. It is finally time for the family dinner. No idea what these two are about, but we'll see. Let's start with family first because it is the first one on our list here. The sun warmed your skin from its place in the sky, and you closed your eyes, enjoying the mix of the heat with the pleasant breeze that drifted past you. You and Lee had spread out. Okay, I'm hanging out with Lee, that's nice. Had spread out on a blanket on top of one of the hills behind your house, and had been relaxing there for a while now. Lee had come over earlier in the day, and while a range of activities had been discussed, from staying home to heading down to the beach, a picnic on the hill had been the choice you both settled on. Okay. A small spread was laid out in front of you, some bottled water, soft drinks, as well as chips and sliced fruit. You sat up and reached for a snack, listening to Lee talk away about the musical she had gotten to see a few days ago. Okay, tell me more. Which one is it? It was unbelievable. There was singing, dancing, and crazy stunts, and it was all done live right in front of my face. Maybe one day we could go together. I've got to see more shows like that. You smiled at Lee's enthusiasm, knowing how much she enjoyed singing and performing. And she was good at it, too. You'd gotten the chance to hear her sing a couple of tunes, and you knew she put a lot of effort into it. I love that. I don't know that I would say that I have a talent in singing, but I do like to sing. I was in chorus for a long time. And I'm not bragging when I say this, okay? I want 100%, I don't really think that I have a talent to speak of. But there have been a few people that are like, no, you're good at it. You should, get a little bit more confident in it, whatever. I feel like I'm better than to say I'm not very good, but I don't feel like I'm good enough to say that I have talent. But I'll just go with this one. I don't know. It was nice the two of you could share that interest. I wonder if maybe we could put on our own show. Think of how much fun it would be. Yikes. We could perform for our parents and ask our friends and some other people to come and watch too. It'd totally work. I don't know about that. The idea gave me stage fright. But wouldn't showing off to everybody be fun? The thought of an audience made you feel queasy. I don't mind audiences when I'm in a large group. If I'm part of a play or if I'm in a choir, that's fine. People aren't really paying that much attention to me. But two people in front of family and friends? No. Not really. Are you really super sure? You have so many skills you could show off to the masses. Like what? I don't know what something else means. I'd rather do something else? Lee seemed a little disappointed, but she nodded and respected your wishes all the same. What did you have in mind? I don't know. The two of you lay back on the blanket and lazed in the sun, throwing ideas back and forth on what you could fill your time with. The beach was nearby, so you could go swimming or collect shells, or find something to do back at home after all. In the end, nothing was tempting enough to move you from your current position, so you continued chatting with Lee and nibbling on your snacks while the sun traveled in the sky overhead. So, how are your neighbors doing? You haven't spoken about them lately. You knew Lee wasn't talking about neighbors generally or down the street. She wanted to hear about the Holdens across the road. Yeah, I could tell. It was no secret that she liked to keep up to date on what was happening with them. Or, more specifically, Cove. There weren't many other people your age around to talk about. They're great. They're okay. Cove and his dad were doing fine, and he didn't want to fuel any unnecessary gossip. Lee loved to chat about others' relationships and would always ask you for the details on people you both knew. Hey, did you want to see if Cove would join the picnic? I don't even get to say sure. I would say sure. I like it just being us sometimes. Lee lit up, her smile spreading across her face. Yeah, we're the best. The sun slowly began to set, the sky turning a rosy pink and then warm orange. Too bad Derek isn't in the neighborhood today. I like him. I'm sure he's a good person. I've only seen him once, so I knew you'd think so. So exactly how much do you like? What? Or maybe there's someone else I haven't heard of yet? Lee wriggled her eyebrows at you suggestively, and you knew exactly what she was implying. There's nobody I like that right now. Lee huffed in disappointment, pursing her lips together. Darn. But you promised to tell me if that changes, right? I'll do it for you. Maybe. Boo. You knew her whining wasn't serious. That's just how she was. Speaking of crushes, there is one boy I think is pretty cute, okay? You listened... Nope. You leaned back on your elbows and listened as Lee talked about her crush, all in great detail. It was nice to have her telling you a little gossip for once, rather than always trying to get it out of you. Finally, you both decided to pack everything up and head back home for the evening. Hello. A little bit scared. I haven't read what's going on yet, but the three of you suddenly here. Hi. Upon walking through the front door, you were met by your moms and Elizabeth hovering around each other in the living room. Tension hung thick in the air as the three of them turned to you and Lee, frowning slightly. You had interrupted something. Exactly what, you weren't sure. What's up? Your moms looked at each other, wondering which of them was going to speak first. Eventually, Mom cleared her throat and spoke. I'm scared. We're just having a talk with your sister. The room fell quiet again, with no one quite knowing what to say. You felt incredibly awkward, but the silence didn't last long. You don't have to stop just because the two of those are here. Sure. There's no reason to try keeping it a secret. Okay? Elizabeth was mad, with her arms folded defensively over her chest, but your moms nodded in agreement with her. Oh, okay. Elizabeth was asking about her parents. Her biological ones. The world spun around you at the news. You couldn't understand why was this happening now. When you glanced at Lee, she shuffled her feet uncomfortably, as though she didn't know if she could be there or not anymore. You didn't know either. Your moms had always been open and honest about the fact that neither of them had given birth to you or your sister, but the details hadn't been fully explained before. It made sense that Elizabeth didn't know a lot about her biological parents and wanted to know more. You just had never thought you'd accidentally stumble into it. Elizabeth looked at your parents expectantly. She wasn't going to let the unintentional interruption derail things. We don't want to keep that information from either of you. It's your right to know your past. But we did want to wait until you asked us to hear yourselves. Well, it's happening now, so... Your mom shared a nervous glance, and Ma took in a quick breath before speaking again. I adopted you from the Philippines when you were just a baby. Elizabeth dropped her arms, her eyebrows shooting upwards in surprise. Wait, I wasn't born here? No, you weren't. You could clearly see that your sister was appalled by this information. Why are you appalled? You struggled even more with what to do, or how to react. Am I going to have to pass some tests to even be a citizen? I don't think that's how that works. But I guess that could be a good question. Yeah, I'm pretty sure adoption takes care of that for you. But as a 15-year-old, I guess I would be a little bit confused there too. No, you were adopted into the country. We took care of things. You're already a citizen. You have nothing to worry about. I followed all the laws when it came to bringing a child into the US. Nothing can be held against you. Elizabeth sighed. Plate, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Placated? Plate, I don't know. With the information, but still far from happy. Who are my parents, as people? Why did they put me up for adoption in the first place? Ma softly put her hands over Elizabeth's shoulder, trying to provide some support before she gave the answer. I'm so sorry, sweetie. Your parents were reported to have died. They didn't go into details on the specifics of how, but you were an orphan. I wish we had better news for you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth was torn between emotions, her eyes filled with tears as she threw her hands in the air, settling on enraged. Great, so I can never meet them even if I wanted to. Not that I could have anyway, since they lived in another part of the world when they were still alive. Elizabeth turned her back on you and your moms and stormed off, sprinting up the stairs into her room before anyone could stop her. I have to go and talk to her. Ma immediately started to follow her, but Mom gently held her by the arm and shook her head. We should give her a little space to process it all. Your Ma's head hung low, but she stopped walking. With Elizabeth now gone, the two of them seemed to remember you and Lee were still standing awkwardly off to the side. Hello. I'm sorry you had to see all that. It's not how I expected it would have happened when the time came. But since it's the topic of the day, Kit, is there anything you'd like to ask? You deserve to know, after all. Lee patted your back and gave you a supportive look. I'm cool. I'm fine. I don't want to know. I also don't have the experience of being somebody who was adopted. So I don't know if that would have changed if I put myself in my character's shoes. If that would have changed, but I think personally who I am as a person right now, if I were adopted, I wouldn't want to know unless it was medically necessary, you know? Like if I had a disease and it was a biological sort of thing, I'd want to know those details, but otherwise, I don't think I'd want to know anything else. That's perfectly fine. You can always ask later if you ever change your mind. You smiled at them gratefully. It was nice to know they wanted to be open with you about the topic, even if it wasn't a talk you wanted to have now. No one seemed to have any words after that. Gee, I don't know what to do. I feel like I shouldn't go up to my room. I mean, okay, I do have Lee to worry about as well. Geez, I don't know. Wanted to get out of the house. I think we're fine. Like, we just came into the house, right? I do agree that Elizabeth needs some time. Though if she wanted an ear, I would give it to her. Here you go. I guess solely because Lee is here, I'll go up to my room with her. But if she wasn't here, I would stay with them. You slowly walked past your mom's and headed to the stairs, your mind racing from the conversation. Yes, I want Lee to be with me right now. It's the whole reason I went to my room. Lee nodded without a word. When safely behind your closed bedroom door, you let out a heavy breath before heading over to take a seat on your bed. Lee watched you from where she sat on your desk chair and gave a sad sigh in commiseration. You guess she didn't really know what she could do to help, but she was still trying to be supportive in any way she could. So, what do you want to do? Can I help? Do you think of me as like, literally, I do not care. These emotions are not my emotions. And so it's difficult decisions solely because, like, I'm not feeling it. Maybe we should have stayed down with the moms if I knew that we were going to be sad about it. Just thanks for being here. I'm happy to. She paced over and sat next to you on the bed, and you sat quietly together as time passed. A sudden knock drew your attention, causing you to sit up straight. Cove, I swear. When you realized it wasn't coming from the door, but the window, your head snapped towards it. Lee did the same, looking a little uncertain if she should be worried by this development or not. It's fine. You didn't even have to question who it was. There was only one person who would come tapping at your window, especially at night. You moved closer and looked out, sure enough seeing the familiar head of green hair on the other side of the glass. In only a moment, you had the window unlatched and opened for him to enter. Cove pulled himself in through the window with ease, standing straight in your room and dusting himself off. Lee tried not to let the display break the seriousness of the situation for her. Cove, what are you doing here? When he saw you, he seemed worried, and he ran a hand through his hair before speaking. I came to the front door. I just wanted to come by, but your moms told me they didn't know if you should be bothered right now, that I should come back later. I know they wouldn't have said it like if you were working on some school stuff or whatever, so I got worried. I thought something bad had happened. And then you climbed up the side of my house? He smiled, feeling unrepentant for disregarding your mom's ruling. How else was I supposed to get in? You couldn't quite believe he had really shown up for you like this, but then again, you shouldn't have been surprised. He was always there for you. Again, I do not care. These are not my feelings, but... Well, what happened? Cove pulled your desk chair next to your bed and sat down, his long legs bent in front of him. He fidgeted a little with your bed covers, not bent, not quite knowing what to say, but he was willing to wait. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you're here. My TED Talk is about now. There's a lot going on right now. Cove looked at you in confusion, his eyebrows dipping. What is it? Can you explain everything to me? You nodded softly. Lee's in the room still, by the way. Like, we haven't really focused on her since you came in. You nodded softly before taking in a heavy breath and launching into the story. Cove sat quietly and listened attentively, nodding every now and then or taking a sharp inhale. Silence settled between you as Cove sat quietly for a moment, contemplating everything you had said. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, drifting through the night towards you. Kit, again, I'm not sad. I'm sorry about what's happening with Elizabeth, your parents, your family, everything. He stopped suddenly, and you got the impression he was struggling to find more to say. You know, Elizabeth and I haven't been super close, but I don't think she'd want her family to break up or drift apart. Even if she complains about it sometimes. He smiled at you a little. You could tell he was trying to be comforting. And your moms definitely don't. It doesn't matter if you're not blood related, you're definitely family. I can see that, and I hope you can too. You cried sadly. Thanks. His words had made you feel better. And you knew it was true. You loved your family. Elizabeth cared about it too. She was just hurt. Your cousin tried not to interrupt your explanation or Cove's response to it. When the opportunity arose, she made it clear she shared the same sentiment. A knock on the door made you look up. Hi. So, a fun story, Elizabeth. I know I walked in the front door with only Lee. Don't worry about it, you know? Before you could even move, it swung open, and Elizabeth stood in your doorframe. She walked closer, and you didn't quite know what to do or what she was planning on saying. Oh, okay, cool. Would you mind going? I want to talk to just Kit. You can come back. It's not going to be forever or anything. Cove seemed equal parts concerned and skeptical. Leaving now wasn't a concept that thrilled him. Lee wasn't exactly jumping to go, so she checked with you quietly. What do you think? I want to talk to you too, but also, like, Cove just can't walk downstairs. Cove, shove yourself out the window for 5 minutes. Oh, then we're on the same page. She made a little move along gesture with her hands, and it was settled. He waited until the two of you were alone before fixing her with an inquisitive look. Elizabeth folded her arms, looking you over. Did moms tell you about your parents too? I didn't want to know. Elizabeth nodded in understanding, her face solemn. Why did you want to talk to me? Elizabeth raised an eyebrow at the question, as though the answer should be obvious. I was worried about you. I was the one who brought it up, but I made you deal with whatever was left when I was gone. It's really nice, actually. Like the one time that we're siblings. She sighed, glancing upwards for a moment before settling on you once more. I wanted to ask what happened without everyone breathing down our necks. Thank you for thinking of me. I'm also not mad at you. Thank you for thinking of me? She stuck her nose up a little at that, but her smile was soft. I'm okay, Elizabeth. It didn't upset me. Thank you. How are you allowed to be that mature? The lightning spirits in her were quickly gone as she slipped back into a scowl. You have to be born in the US to become... Okay, last I knew you wanted to be a golfer, now we're deciding to be president? What? You'd never even heard of that dream of hers before. She noticed your bafflement and continued. I get I was never going to be president, but it just feels weird having stuff taken away, not even getting a chance at it. I don't like having to know that when I was born I was going to have a completely different life. So different I can't even think about what it looked like in my head. I could have spoken another language, lived away from everything I've ever seen here, had someone else as my sibling. And then my parents died and I was adopted, and the life I got became a totally new thing forever. I can't go back to what it was, even if I wanted to. A heaviness settled between you and the person who became your sister. Neutral, I'm hoping? It was a confusing feeling to have lived one way for as long as you can remember, but not having it be what was originally yours. Elizabeth watched you seriously. She was still trying to make sense of this to you and herself. I don't know why today was the day. Nothing came up to make me ask the question. It was just something I've had in my head for a while. And when it was just me and Mom's in the living room, I just kind of said it, finally, and there you go. She shifted from one foot to another, relaxing her stance just a bit. She also spoke more gently. Learning about them and what happened doesn't change how I feel about our family. She smirked, fixing you with sharp eyes. I'd already figured a long time ago that moms weren't our biological parents. That wasn't news. Technically one of them could have been related to you. They're not, but technically. I just say it to be a little shit. Our moms can have kids, just not both together. True, but I'm not half white or native Hawaiian, so no, neither of them could have been my mom. Nice try, smart Alec. Nothing about the family I was born in would have made me decide that this wasn't my family anymore. So if you'd hoped you'd be free of my big sisterly status, don't think you're so lucky. She bumped her shoulder against yours playfully, her lips tilted at the corners. You'll always be my little sibling. You bumped her back. Oh. I'm upsetty in my spaghetti, you guys. Alright, and then I had to take a little bit of a break, because, you know, I'm an only child, shit's rough out here, and they're just so wholesome. But I think I'm really lucky. Chuckling, she seemed pleased with how the conversation had gone in the end. We should probably head downstairs and make sure the moms are okay. It's been a long day for everyone. You gave her a nod. Down we go. You met up with Lee and Cove just outside the room and made the short trip to the lower floor of your home together. The familiarity of it all felt nice. I wonder what they're gonna say about Cove. When you stepped into the living room, you found your moms quietly sitting together at the kitchen table. They both got to their feet when they noticed the arrival, and Ma gave you a careful smile. It seemed they were too concerned to really register that Cove was inexplicably there now, despite being turned away at the door earlier. We're so glad to see you. Hi. Hi, sweetheart. Ma then came over and wrapped her arms around you and Elizabeth, giving you a tight hug. It didn't take long for Mom to join in, putting her arms around the both of you. We really couldn't have asked for better, kiddos. Oh, we love you. More than we could ever say. Moms. You're smushing me. Let me read the others again, just in case, but... Yeah, I'd say that. You all chuckled, the rumble of laughter shaking you all as you continued to hold each other tight. I love you too. They both pulled back eventually and grinned at the two of you, and you knew then that you all had each other, and you always would. Oh, that one was cute. It's still going, but that was cute. Well now, since we're all here, how about we do something together as a family, and Lee and Cove? That sounds like an excellent idea. We should have some fun before the night's over. I love the sound of that. Yeah, okay. Why not? You had the smile that threatened to tilt your lips, knowing that Elizabeth must have been in a good mood if she hadn't even teased Cove for being part of it. And no matter what she could have said about it, you wanted him to be here. The two of you had practically grown up together over the past 5 years. Who's got a suggestion? Should be something we can do here in the house with everyone in the same room. We could just put on a movie. That would be wonderful. It's good to me. Me too. Yeah. Yeah, why not? I'll cook up some popcorn. The rest of you can pick the movie. Your mom headed off to the kitchen, and Ma turned to face the rest of you. What do we have in mind? Everyone else can decide. I'll watch anything. Anything but drama. We don't need any more of that today. There were some chuckles at her joke, and you thought about what you would prefer to watch. I don't really watch movies, so I don't know, but I think comedy would be a good sequel to this little interaction we've had. Cool. Perfect. With the basics settled, Ma took to sorting through the DVD collection. You didn't notice that Elizabeth was sidling up to you until she was right next to you, arm to arm. Since there's only so much room on the couch, I say it should go to Kit and I. This is our day. Wait, I want to sit with you too. I'm small. You won't even notice I'm there. Elizabeth raised a skeptical eyebrow. Not so sure about that. Ma stood back up with a DVD in her hand and a smirk on her face. I want to sit with the cool kids too. Surely there's room for one more, right? It might be a tight fit, but we can make it work. You could tell that Ma was teasing, and Elizabeth rolled her eyes at where this was going. She'd expected an easy victory. I bet you want to sit there too, huh, Cove? Ma tapped Cove on the shoulder with the DVD case. He laughed awkwardly at her teasing. There's not enough space for everybody. Lee looked disappointed by that, but it was the truth. Mom came back with a big roll of fresh popcorn, and you inhaled the smell of the hot, salted snack. What's the skinny? We all want to sit with Elizabeth and Kit, but there's not enough room on the couch. Mom took that answer in stride and pursed her lips thoughtfully. It's definitely a problem. I suppose there's only one solution. Battle Royale? Elizabeth and Kit will have to sit on the floor in front of the couch. That way there's spots behind them and on the floor at their sides. Ah. Oh yes, that's fair. What? No, the whole point was us getting the couch to ourselves. Sorry, that's the cost of popularity. Elizabeth groaned and crossed her arms over her chest in annoyance. Fine. Kit, you're with me in front. The rest of you can fend for yourselves. There was a mad dash as Mom and Lee raced for the couch behind Ju and Elizabeth, and Ma put the DVD in the player before joining them. Cove took a seat at your other side on the floor, giving you a small smile. Everyone soon quieted down, and the only sounds to be heard were of hands scooping up popcorn and munching it down as the movie began. In that moment, you couldn't have been more pleased to be part of the family you had. I'm worried about dinner now. Okay. Sunlight shone through the windows as you sat in your living room, your home phone pressed to your ear. Cove was on the other end. It had been shaping up to be an ordinary day like any other until Cove had called unexpectedly. He sounded unusually nervous greeting you. Hey? You listened silently as he kept talking, his words stilted. So, I was just, wondering, do you want to come over to my house for dinner tonight? The question came out strangely, almost like he'd rehearsed it a few times beforehand. Your eyes widened a little. You hadn't expected this to be the reason behind the call. Sure. It was, huh? Oh. It seemed that Cove still had more to say, and you just interrupted him. Whoops. Cool, well, he stumbled for a bit, trying to gather his thoughts again. My mom and dad, they really want you to be here. If your parents don't have a problem with it, they asked me to ask you. You took a moment to think. Dinner at home would be quiet and uneventful today. If you really wanted to, you could... I just said yes. Cove spoke up again, breaking your thought train. His voice was softer than before. Also, I want you to be there too. Can you? Come over, I mean. Yeah. I'll make it there. Thanks, Kit. I'll let them know when I can. He sounded noticeably relieved by your response. Was you coming over for a dinner today that serious? What's going on at dinner? He spoke to you for a little while longer to explain what time to come over and other details, then hung up. And that was that, for now anyway. Soon enough, the sun dipped out of the sky and evening came. It was time for you to head to Cove's house. After letting Elizabeth know you were leaving, she didn't look away from the TV, just grunted. You made the small journey across the street. You knocked a couple times on the heavy door to their condo. As you waited for an answer, you found yourself contemplating being a guest while both of Cove's parents were there. You were apprehensive. You didn't know what to expect from this dinner party. You didn't get too much time with your thoughts, though. The door opened soon enough. Cove's mom, Kyra, stood in the frame, smiling warmly at you. Hey, kid. Welcome. Please, come in. Hold on, we gotta look at Cove's house. She opened the door wider and moved to make room. You stepped aside, or inside, whichever you want, allowing her to shut it behind you. Thanks so much for coming over. I know it was kind of last second. It's alright. Thanks for inviting me. Of course, just make yourself at home. It's not my home, but I've been given permission to say that. I love her so much. Hey, Kit, welcome to our humble abode. You jerked your head towards the sound of Mr. Holden's voice. He waved at you briefly from the kitchen with his back turned and a large spoon in hand. Hope you're hungry, because I'm whipping up a lot of tasty stuff. True to his word, you heard something sizzling on the stove. You closed your eyes and inhaled. It smelled spicy. Yikes, and savory. With Mr. Holden busy and Cove nowhere to be seen, it was just you and Kyra. She gave you a wry smile. He sure is. Well, I've been barred from cooking the entire time I'm staying here. Can you believe that? She nudged you with an elbow. Mr. Holden scoffed good-naturedly and spoke from over his shoulder. You're on vacation, Kyra. You need to accept that already. She yelled back, amusement obvious in her face and her tone. People still cook while they're on vacation. Everybody's gotta eat. It's not like I'm some celebrity who can go out for every meal or hire a private chef. Well, in this house, you're a VIP. You're divorced, but they're still so cute. Kyra smiled and shook her head quietly. Then she turned to face you once more. Sorry about that, Kit. Here I was, trying to strike up a conversation with you, and Cliff just had to butt in. I don't butt in. She eyed him, chuckling in disbelief. He wasn't exactly disproving her point with that. Kyra leaned over to whisper to you. It's okay, he likes to be included. But since Clifford insisted on cooking all by himself, he'll have to wait. The two of us can chat. Her next question continued to be said in a hushed tone, just to be safe. So, how you doing? I'm good. I'm good. Kyra didn't seem too convinced by your awkward phrasing, but she nodded anyway. She opened her mouth to say something more, but some lightly pounding footsteps caught your attention. You checked to see Cove emerge from the hall a few moments later. He might have heard all the commotion and left his room to see what was going on. He quickly took stock of the situation. Kit, you made it. Thanks for coming. Cove's voice was unnaturally loud, as if he thought you wouldn't be able to hear him from where you were, only a few feet away. Hi. You gave a shy wave, then felt a little stupid for it. You put your arm back down. I swear. It was when you glanced away from Cove that you spotted his parents watching the two of you interact. Cove noticed their stares too, meeting them with narrowed eyes. We having dinner now? Not yet, bud. I'm still cooking. Alright, I'm gonna go back to my room. As he turned to leave, he bent his head to the side to face you. You coming? I was having a conversation with your mom, but I guess. The question was quiet, but you heard it clearly. You smiled, pleased that he asked, and nodded in the affirmative. Cove turned fully and made his way down the hall. Have fun, you two. We'll call you when food's ready to go. Alright. With that, you followed after Cove. The two of you made your way down the hall. I don't know. First time for me. Cove got to the door first, opening it and stepping inside. You joined him. Quick look at the room. Ah! I saw nothing there. I was too busy focusing on going, ah. There's a mat on the floor in front of the door. As he stepped over the threshold into his room, he felt the crunch of sand beneath your feet. You glanced down. Sand was clustered around the entrance. You even spotted smaller amounts of it dusting the rest of the room's floor. Though you hadn't anticipated it, you were surprised. Oh, you weren't surprised at the sight. Of course Beach Boy Cove Holden would get his room all sandy. So... This is my room. Cove was a bit shy as he said so, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt using one hand and vaguely gesturing to his face with the other. There's stuff you can sit on if you want. You looked over at the desk chair as an option. When you turned back, Cove was already sitting on the edge of his large bed. You trying to make your own beach with all this sand? No. But it'd be cool if I could, though. You couldn't help recalling a long time ago, Cove explaining his childhood dream home would be something located right on the shore of the beach. Maybe that idle thought still held an appeal for him. It made you smile to think about. You didn't sit anywhere. Sit in the chair. There was a desk chair in the room for a reason, after all. He walked over and rolled it out, taking a seat on it. It was stiff against your butt and creaked each time you shifted. Oh my god, like this one? He definitely used his bed space more often than this. Well, too late to complain now, you just have to deal with it. With the silence growing, your gaze began to drift. You stared at the bright fish swimming in the tank. There were a bunch of them, floating to and fro in the open space. They stood out starkly against the green aquarium plants. How long have you had those fish? My dad bought them for me not very long after I moved here. I guess it's been years now. Wow, that's a long time. He peered carefully into the tank. The fish looked to be doing well. You must take good care of them. I wish I could read. Most of them were small, but there was one especially big one. What are their names if they're not breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack? Snack being the biggest one. You have failed me because that's what I named my fish. So, I don't name them. Well, listen, I have names for them. Not really. Don't know what that means. You lifted an eyebrow at that. He continued the explanation sheepishly. Mostly I just call them things based on what they look like. Squirt for a small one, tangerine for a really orange one. That sort of thing. I've had a lot of fish and I'm not that good at coming up with names. I guess surprising? I don't feel any of those things. After all these years, he still had trouble naming his fish? That sounded easy to you. He should prepare some ahead of time if he's planning on getting more. Oh, a couple of them have other types of names. He pointed to a small orangish-red fish. It was minding its own business, away from the others. My dad named her Dreamcatcher, and the other one's Mark. Mom came up with that one. Cove smiled to himself, his eyes reflecting the glow from the tank. You let other people name your fish? Yeah, it's nice. He then turned to you, tilting his head to the side. There was a considering look on his face. Do you want to name one? Yes, it shall be Breakfast. Yes. His smile grew a little at your enthusiasm. Cool. There's a few who don't have names right now, the newer ones. You can pick what you want to name. He pointed each of the recent acquisitions out to you. The first was the smallest fish in the tank. It was completely orange and sipped all over the place, running laps around the others. The second was slightly bigger and red. Its tail was dotted with black spots, which almost resembled freckles. The last fish was the biggest one. Its multicolored scales rippled under the bright light of the tank as it slowly made its way across the vast expanse. You went with, please let me put my own name in. Don't give me a multiple choice question. Please, I'm begging you. The biggest fish. Cove only nodded at your answer, waiting on you to decide on a suitable name. You watched the fish you chose closely. As you did, a name eventually came to you. Type in your own answer. That is Snack. Alright, it's Snack. Yes! I'm so happy. It's gotta be the biggest fish that's named Snack. It does not make for a good joke if the biggest fish is not named Snack. Thank you. With that, his attention moved from you to the tank. He peered fondly at it and its inhabitants. It's difficult for me to say some of these words because my nose is all stuffed up from crying about siblings earlier. He smiled proudly at Snack as it swam through the tendrils of the plants, disappearing, then reappearing soon after. You know, I'm not allowed to have pets in my house, not even fish. The corners of Cove's lips turned down at that. That doesn't sound fair. It's not like fish would make a mess of your house or anything. You'll just gotta take care of their tank and feed them and they'll be okay. My moms can be strict over the weirdest things sometimes. They trust Elizabeth and me to go around the neighborhood alone, but they won't let us have a pet? Doesn't make any sense. Maybe when you're older, they'll let you. I don't know, they seem pretty against it. Your current conversation brought to mind a memory from years ago. It started coming out with no warning, earning you a brief, confused look from Cove. One time Elizabeth, came back from playing at the beach and hid in her room. She came down for food, but then she ran right back upstairs after. It was hard to understand. Our moms left her alone at first. But that night, Mom went to her room to say goodnight, and she screamed. Mom and I went over to see what was wrong. We found Lizzie with a big lizard in her arms. Perfect. Amazing. No notes. Lizzie Lizard. Yes. Cove's eyebrows rose at that, and he leaned forward in interest. A lizard? Where'd that come from? Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. She picked it up to find out, and she brought it home. She hid the lizard in her room for a whole day because she wanted to keep it. Mom and Mom were upset with her. They worried about putting it out during night, but she was going to have to let it go in the morning. Lizzie was really sad. She did release the lizard, but she wouldn't talk to anyone for days. When she did stop being unhappy, it was almost like it never happened. You shook your head, thinking back to that time. Elizabeth had always been stubborn, but when she was younger, she forgot grudges quickly. Now it wasn't so easy. Cove had been quiet for most of the story, apart from the reveal of the lizard. He had a thoughtful look on his face. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to have a sibling. You gave serious thought to his statement before you told him. Bitch, I'm an only child too. It's a nice idea in general, but my sister's Elizabeth. There are ups and downs, I assume. It's fun to have her there when she wants to be there, but now Elizabeth barely feels like hanging out with me. Cove pursed his lips at the words, considering them quietly for a while. That's interesting. I think your family is cool. He didn't have much else to say. Though, while on the topic of your family, you considered your relationship with your moms, too. You got along with your moms, perhaps. I'm gonna have to read the next line to see, fully what this means. Yeah, sure. You had disagreements with them, but at the end of the day, you loved them. I said loved wrong. And they loved you. That was what really mattered. Well, say what you want about them, but at least your mom's never tried to pay someone to be your friend. The thought prompted you to look over at Cove. You probably still didn't know that happened. You doubted that Mr. Holden mentioned it, and you never had. You wondered if you should tell him. It was a long time ago, but you were keeping a secret from Cove. No. Secrets were meant to be kept. Mr. Holden told you not to tell anyone, especially not Cove. You didn't want to break his trust. Time passed, but you didn't really notice. The two of you were busy, making plans for the rest of the summer and chatting about your respective days. Eventually, you heard a muffled holler from a different part of the house. You and Cove raised your heads in unison. It's time for dinner. Cove watched the firmly shut door he had been locked behind for most of the night, but he didn't make a move to get up from the bed. You couldn't see his face, so you didn't know what expression he was wearing. I'm nervous again. I'm glad you came. Cove peeked back at you from the side. It's been awkward. Oh, yeah. You wished you had something nice or comforting to say to that. Hopefully just being there for him was enough. Cove said nothing else and remained sat where he was, so this is just the awkwardness is getting to you, and you just want a little break sort of thing. Because I could deal with that, I understand. Now would be as good of a time as any to ask him why his parents so suddenly wanted you to come over. Thought it was Cove. Is there a reason they wanted me to come over tonight? It hasn't been awkward for just me. Sometimes it gets like this when no one else is around. But now you're here. Okay, the entire family needs me to be a little, like, wall in between everyone. Y'all are so messy. I love you so much. You hadn't considered that, but it sort of made sense in a way. There was another shout from outside, too muffled to actually know the words, but you could imagine what they were. Let's go. Cove finally got up, lumbering away with his shoulders sagged. You followed after him. Together, the two of you made your way back to the living room. Hi, you're very close. As you expected, Cove's parents were politely waiting for you at the kitchen table, beside the windows overlooking the back of the house. Food had been prepared and set. Mr. Holden beamed as you and Cove took your places. I hope everyone's hungry. I cooked up a feast. I know I am. Yeah. Cove's mumbled response wasn't nearly as upbeat as theirs. His parents didn't notice, or they pretended not to. Mr. Holden instead looked at you, grinning. Let's all just take a moment to thank our special guest for being with us here tonight. I'm so glad you were able to make it, Kit, and on such short notice, too. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah. Well, that's it. Everyone, please dig in. You can help yourselves to the food. Upon his encouragement, you looked over the meal spread out in front of you. There's a large garden salad in the center, surrounded by a variety of Mexican dishes. There are a lot of sides and optional sauces to add. I'm between two options because I don't crazily like Mexican food, but I could work with it. You know? I'm not exactly a fan, but I could work with it, so. You didn't mind Mexican food, I guess. Mom loved it, so you ate it as a family often. In a way, it made your first dinner at the Holden house feel a bit more normal. Utensils and plates scraped and clinked together as the group began filling their plates. Cliff, could you pass the salsa verde? Great. Of course. Thank you. Let me just say, you really outdid yourself tonight. I'm so jealous. Jealous? Of what? Your cooking's nothing to sneeze at, Kai. Okay. Just in the background here, hello. Cove's parents made small talk, filling the silence with what seemed to be barely any effort. You weren't sure what to say, nor did you want to interrupt them by blurting something out. But without warning, Cove's parents started pulling you into the small talk. Do you want anything from my area of the table? Say the word and I'll hand it right over. Oh, I'm good, Mr. Holden, but thank you. You should try some of the guacamole. I don't like guacamole. It's been a while since I've had this, but I remember it being amazing. You're too kind. Everything looks great, Dad, as always. Thanks, Sport. Glad you think so. Cove smiled. It was genuine, even if it was strained at the corners. Brief silences interspersed the small talk. You piled some food on your plate, waiting for your turn if someone was serving themselves the dish you had your eyes on. Once the food had been divided and things settled down, Cove's parents started talking again. Now then. You sat up in your seat when you noticed they were both looking at you. Oh no. How has everything been over at your house? Are your moms well? You keep busy this summer? Or maybe you're just trying to take it easy during the break. Slow. You were surprised, but you didn't mind the interest. You hadn't expected so many questions and all at once. Still, what else was there to talk about apart from how the summer was going? You answered how things were at your house. It's been good. Oh, that's wonderful. You told them how your moms were doing. The moms are great. Mom took us out for dessert a couple weeks ago since her project went really well. That's so. I'll have to congratulate her when I see her. And this summer, you should know what I've been up to. That's funny, I'm gonna say it just to be sassy. Mr. Holden laughed loud and short. You caught him off guard with that. Fair point. And that was that. Kyra nodded along. You could tell she was actually listening to the words you were saying. She was trying to include you, not humor you. Did you know, Cliff, Kit is really oh boy, we're going back to this. Mr. Holden's face lit up and he stopped eating so he could lean forward, his arm braced against the table. Oh, that's right. Very cool. At 13, I'm pretty serious about it. I had to think about it for a second. You are, at such a young age? That's really impressive. I was 8 or 9 when I decided I wanted to be an author when I grew up. Didn't quite pan out, but you know, I still do it occasionally. If you keep putting in the time, I'm sure you can do something great. Thanks. Cove's parents were definitely the encouraging type, but you could already tell that much about them. There was a lull in conversation as everyone focused their attention on their respective plates. You noted not for the first time that Cove's parents were the ones guiding the conversation. You wondered if you should break the silence this time. Honestly, I was thinking the same thing. I don't know what I'm going to say, but you hesitated before pushing through your discomfort and speaking unprompted. I also like other things. Would you like to tell us more? I guess. Yeah, absolutely. They looked genuinely eager for you to keep talking, so you did. The rest of dinner continued just like that, with light conversation as you ate your meals. Eventually, all the dishes on the kitchen table were pretty much gone. Kyra set down her fork and rested her arms at her sides, letting loose a satisfied sigh. Her plate was completely empty. That was delish. Thank you for your culinary creations, Cliff. Mr. Holden was like a flower soaking up the rays of the sun. He beamed, flattered by the praise. You ate until you were satisfied. It had taken you some time to finish it all, but eventually you cleared your plate. Cove successfully kept his presence to a minimum for the full meal. He was slumped over, even now, toying with his silverware. His parents practically only talked to you. Most attempts to entice him to join the conversation had failed. It wasn't typical for him to say so little. He at least tried to participate. You didn't get much time to contemplate Cove's situation because your attention was taken by Mr. Holden, pointedly clearing his voice. A little bit nervous again. Continue. Not to sound like a broken record, but thank you for coming, Kit. I'm glad we finally got the chance to have you over for a real dinner. What? Did I hear that right? This is the first time Kit has ever had dinner here? Why in the world haven't you invited them over sooner? Cove is always the one going over to Kit's house until now. I mean, how was I supposed to reject the generous offer of the Thicket family to host my kid? Kyra shook her head, but the amused smile she was sporting told you that she wasn't actually mad. This guy, honestly. The three of you looked at Cove in unison. His small sound being more than enough to get the focus on him after his silence. By now he'd stopped fiddling with his fork. Would it be alright for Kit to stay over, like for the night? He shot you a shy glance then, smiling a little. If you're cool with that. Mr. Holden's shoulders stiffened. He sat up straighter, eyes darting back and forth between you and Cove. His mouth opened, but not a peep came out. You'd never seen Cove's dad say no to him before, but this was different than the usual request. It wasn't so simple, and Mr. Holden was lost. Then Cove's mom reached out and took a hold of his shirt collar. She pulled him closer. She glanced at you before leaning in and bringing a hand up in front of their faces. The two adults whispered seriously to each other. We could leave the room if you want. Cove's eyes opened wider. He leaned forward as if that would help him overhear his parents' conversation. Mr. Holden kept gesturing with his hands while Kyra made sure he didn't get too far away with his movements. Every now and then, both of them would watch you, Cove, out of the corner of their eyes. Why is this conversation so long? It didn't seem like they were fighting to you. They looked more like some kind of tiny sports team having a private huddle. After a bit, they broke the group up. They moved back to sit properly in their chairs. He snuck a look at Cove. He stared at them expectantly. You were eager to hear their verdict, too. We, Kyra and I, as if we had anybody else who was part of that discussion, think that should be fine. But he lifted a finger dramatically. I did too. Down here. But he lifted a finger dramatically, his brows raising as he met Cove's gaze and then your own. We'll have to talk with Kit's parents to make sure they be comfortable with it. If they are, we can arrange for a sleepover to happen on a different night when everyone is more prepared. If Kit's folks don't like the idea, there's nothing we can do. He finished the mini speech with a wide shrug, using his full arms. He also checked out Kyra from the corner of his eye and gave her a crooked smile. She nodded approvingly and grinned back. He thought you saw her give him a thumbs up, but her hand was partially blocked by the table. They looked so pleased with themselves over the answer, but they just passed the actual decision on whether it was alright or not to someone else. Namely, your parents. If this was a sports game, they would have punted the ball away. You know me, big sports fan. Cove hung his head, deflated. He had been hoping you could stay over today, not some hypothetical time in the future. I'll sneak the phone into my room tonight. Are they gonna hear if I say it? Cove's eyes sparkled at the suggestion. You wouldn't be surprised to have him knocking on your window sometime. Though he likely still would without the invite. With that, dinner finally came to an end. Mr. Holden stood up from the table and began collecting empty plates. Cove was asked to help out, which he did with little fuss. Kyra tried to lend a hand as well, however Mr. Holden didn't let her. It seemed she was barred from cleaning as well as cooking. You weren't allowed to chip in either, since you were there as the declared guest of honor. Though the meal was over, the night wasn't. It looked like you weren't going home just yet, after all. You were asked to wait on the couch. While Cove and his dad were cleaning up the mess, Kyra disappeared down the hall after shooting you a wink. I'm nervous again. It was a bit strange, sitting by yourself while everyone else had something to do. Luckily, you weren't alone for too long. After a couple minutes, Cove's mom returned with a deck of cards in hand. Sure. She strolled into the room confidently while shuffling. So, who's up for a few rounds? Cove and his dad looked over their shoulders at the question. They were mutually intrigued by the cards in her hands. She beamed at their expressions and stepped further into the living room. Ignoring the couches, she sat cross-legged on the floor by the coffee table. She turned to you and gestured at the space beside her, smiling invitingly. You accepted and followed her lead. The living room carpet was soft, though the hardwood floor underneath could definitely still be felt. Kyra did an overhand shuffle while she waited for the others to finish their tasks. The smile had yet to leave her lips. This is going to be good. I enjoy her enthusiasm. Cove's mom was funny, upbeat, and easygoing. You leaned closer to watch her expertly shuffle the cards. It didn't take much longer for Cove and his dad to wrap things enough to call it good. Cove's dad appeared first, followed closely behind by Cove. Mr. Holden rubbed his hands together in anticipation. Alright, I'm ready. As he took a seat across from you on the floor, you noticed that Cove hadn't joined him. He went straight down the hall. Instead, without even a word, you stared on, confused, as he disappeared through his bedroom door. What the fuck? Why am I playing cards without you? Cove's parents didn't look concerned at the stunt. Kyra nonchalantly split the deck of cards into two and rifled the halves together, while offering an explanation of sorts. Cove doesn't keep his wallet with him when at home, he puts it away. What are we playing? What do we need money for? What? Cove quickly returned to the living room, a black wallet in his hand. He took place at the foot of the table with the rest of you. You blinked as Cove unzipped his wallet. Do you bet real money on card games with your family? While you sat there, your hands idle in your lap, the three shot looks at one another and sized each other up. That's right, $5 per round per person. Winner takes all. Y'all scare me. Damn, okay. Go big or go home. Oh, are you planning on kicking Kit to the curb? Or do you intend on donating to the Guest of Honor's pot, Mr. High Roller? Mr. Holden narrowed his eyes and leaned back against the side of the couch, completely at ease. If Kit wants to play, I'll fund their way in. Don't you worry about that. He rested an arm across the top of a knee that he propped up. Cove's dad was acting slick in a way you've never seen before. You joked that he shouldn't be too confident. Are you sure? Adding me could be spelling your doom. Right you are, Kit. I hope you can back that attitude up. You know I can, Kyra. You can let me pay for Kit. They're my friend. I'm overwhelmed. Mr. Holden grinned with a chuckle. Alright, bud. I concede. You're too polite for me. Well, you've got your ticket. Interested in throwing in? You glanced around. This seemed like serious business. In response to your consternation, Kyra softened her competitive smile. Don't worry too much, we'll probably just do some rounds of Go Fish tonight. You're putting in money for Go Fish of all games. No biggie. What do you think? I mean, I'm in no matter what game you were playing, but Go Fish is a funny game to place bets on. You set your jaw and nodded at her. Mr. Holden gave you a big thumbs up while Cove nodded firmly back. I'm gonna waste so much of your money, Cove. Rest in peace to your wallet. I feel like I'm decent at Go Fish. I haven't played it in like years, but I'm surprisingly good at all card games. Even the first time playing, I like always win. You can ask my friends. They get annoyed at me. Sometimes you won, sometimes you lost. You like to think you weren't bad at it, though. Fantastic. We'll play for however long everyone wants to keep going, or until people start running out of cash, but are still refusing to quit while they're behind. That sounds targeted. Speaking for yourself, I see. With a laugh, Kyra nudged you using an elbow, then motioned towards the other two with her chin. Don't be fooled by their soft faces. These boys are sharks. In reaction to her words, Mr. Holden smirked, and Cove's eyebrows became more angled. Kyra's phrasing made you think to back when you were young, specifically of Mr. Holden's favorite shark pants that he used to wear all the time. Were they shark pants? They were, you know what? Thinking about them now. Perhaps they had been a fit for him in ways you didn't know of. You could feel tension in the air. Cove and his parents glued their eyes to one another, then all placed $5 bills in an empty space in front of them. Cove dropped an extra one for you, giving you a tiny smile after he did. Once this was done, Kyra began dealing out cards to everybody. It was time to begin. The first round came and went quickly, with the group getting into the groove of things. You won right away, which meant you had money to keep playing the second round. You're a natural. Nicely done. You better keep those wits about you for the next round, though. I wonder if this is based on, like, the sporty versus studious thing. Like, my character's more studious, so does that mean that my character's better at cards? As the night went on, so did the games. Mr. Holden would jokingly shake his fist whenever someone other than him got a pair. Kyra acted as a news anchor, reporting on every move everyone made by speaking into her curled fist. I love that. Cove was still a few words, but now it was because he was focused on the game, instead of being overcome with awkwardness. Most of the time you even spotted a smile on his lips. You won quite a few games, to your delight. You had a hefty money pile on your side of the table. Nice, good. You must regret paying Kit's way in now, huh? No way. Kit might be beating me, but they're also beating you two. Oof. Cove turned towards you and smiled, looking pleased at your ability to match his mom and dad. You smiled to yourself, happy that your friend had your back. It became clear that where the money went in the moment didn't really matter. They ended up giving it back to one another in other ways, and not just through more rounds of cards. You sat back, looking over the scene. A tiny smile grew on your face. Cove's family was pretty cool, you thought. You were glad you got this chance to come over and spend time with the three of them. Okay, but did I beat them? Did I win all of the money? Moo ha 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 ha. Alright, well, that's 2 little moments here. We're over an hour recorded. This episode definitely did not go the way that I was expecting in any way. But it was fun. I had fun, especially with the dinner one. Family had some emotions. But the dinner, that's gotta be one of my favorite moments. And we still have more to do, of course. I'm excited to see the rest of the game. But we have to end this episode here, unfortunately. Thank you for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time, where we'll go on a road trip and then to the mall. Fun, interesting, going out, doing things. Let's see what happens then.